Paperback writer, writer, writer. Hey, this is John Bolger with Premier Guitar, and we've got some next level geekdom for you today. This is the Dr. Roberts by Aclam guitars. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's a Spanish company. Perhaps it's Aclam, Aclam. Anyway, you get the idea. A-C-L-A-M. And they've built this Dr. Roberts as a very loving, detail-oriented tribute to Beatles tones. And specifically, it's trying to emulate the Vox UL730. And what this is, it's an overdrive, but it's an overdrive pedal, but it's based on the #1 channel of that amp. And it's essentially an amp in a box. Think of it that way. Why don't I just I'll just tell you some of the main details about it. What they did is they tried to get the most accurate representation of the original preamp of the UL730, and they even went to the great lengths of like getting the circuit working in the same voltage, where it converts 9 volts to 18, and I mean it's some next level geekdom. I won't bore you with all the details, but in short, they went to great lengths to give you this tone, and I think it's really accurate. And what's kind of cool is in this book, in the booklet that comes with it, they'll show you specifically how to dial in those tones right there. So, for instance, the ingredients are pretty simple. You've got, your bypass, you're on. So once you're on, you're in the main channel of this where you have volume, gain, and mids. And they work, you get the idea on that. There it is with very little gain, and there it is up a bit. Just giving you a bit more. Mids, or you can scoop them back. So you've got some tweaking options there, and also volume. And to give you, here's what our tone sounds like with nothing. Just going through that little Fender Blues Junior right there. So there's our kind of transparent, amp tone. And you can hear, as you color this like that, it does make it, to my ears, very Voxy. And particularly that, that era of Vox. It's interesting how the Beatles, those guys were such great guitar players and such great musicians, and I think the way they got their tone was just, I don't know, accidental. These were just the tools they happened to have laying around. Vox amps, they were in Great Britain, so that's what was available. And it became such a huge part of their tone, but it also had so much to do with the way they played them. And I think it had so much to do with their working in loud clubs where they cranked them all the way up and they just wouldn't keep up. But, the tone was fantastic. Anyway, so these are the basic controls, gain, volume, and mids. And then over here, they have a switch called Mach Show, which is the German term meaning more show, and apparently when they played in Hamburg, people would yell, Mach Schmo, or Mach Show, meaning, I don't know, give more of a show or whatever. But I like the way they've integrated it into this. It's just next level Beatle geekdom. So, for instance, Paperback Writer, they tell you in the manual here how to dial it up. You put the Mach Show on, mids about there, gain in the middle, volume there, and it lets you kind of and they say play with a with a 64 Casino, and this is actually an Epiphone tribute to the Lennon thing, the 1964, and it's made in the U.S. and it's pretty accurate. And I would say this tone is pretty accurate. And just because we're getting geeked out here, when you're playing that riff, part of the magic is they dug in close to the bridge, you know? If you're doing it by the neck, it's not the same. Got to get it in there. So the tools alone will not get you there. You got to have that thing where they dig in there. Anyway, I digress. The point is, in this box, you really do get very accurate. You can dial in some pretty quick Beatle-y tones. Okay, sample setting. Let's see, like Sgt. Pepper's lead. They suggest bringing the mids way up and the gain way up. 20 years ago today. Anyway, pretty close. I mean, for just like dialing something in. And again, this is like, I just think stuff like this is fun. I'm not a great mimic. I'm not great at mimicking other guitar players or tones or anything like that. But I really appreciate when people dial it in. My approach has always been kind of like, well, when the Beatles were recording, they just used what was around. You know, like later on, they're using Fender amps because I think they just, I don't know, whatever, they were louder or whatever. But gear was different back then. I think it was more utilitarian. Now we get kind of obsessed with chasing tones and classic tones, and they were just playing songs and they were inventing these classic tones. All that to be said, this stuff's fun and I love that these guys did it. Okay, and talking about just the fun of it all, the artwork on the pedal was done by Klaus Voormann, who's the same artist that did the Revolver album cover artwork. So, I mean, I love that, man. What a great kind of fitting tribute. I love that they took it to that level. The minutia of it is just sort of beautiful. Okay, we've heard it with the Casino, but let me get into the Strat thing. So here's our bass tone. Let me look at, I think they played a Strat on Taxman. So let me dial this in right quick. Yeah, okay. Strat mid-60s Strat. So Taxman is, according to these guys, right there. So here, let's see what happens. I'll tell you how it's going to be. Yeah, I don't know. Sounds pretty close. Now again, you don't have to just use this for Beatles songs, but this would be a great. I could totally see this as a great, studio tool when, there are times in sessions or whatever where people say, hey, can you do, cop that kind of tone that, and so, yeah, in one box you can do that. But in a live setting, I don't know, to have these different colors in your palette, it's beautiful. And another cool thing I like about these guys is that they have a proprietary board that has like a track system where you can attach your pedals with this built-in, it extends into this kind of track system in the proprietary boards that Aclam makes. So I think that's really cool. I'd try everything from Velcro to zip ties to just screwing shit down on a board. I tried it all and nothing works. But this seems like a good idea. Of course, you've got to use their pedals on their deal. So if there's like a universal thing that did that, that'd be great. But I like that. Also, there's true bypass and all that jazz you'd expect from a modern pedal. Very and the sturdy housing and all that jazz. So good on you guys. I love the geeky nature of your tone quest. I love that you guys are going for it. I'll just show you a few more little tunes and we'll play out on this thing. So. It's just a good straight ahead. Starting to get a little dirty, then add the mock show. To me, that's very, very Voxy. There's a weird thing that Voxes get, I think, when you kind of push them hard. It's that high-end bite, which they just kind of get that way. And it's almost kind of unpleasant by itself, but man, does it stick in a mix. So, well, very cool. Well, that's the basics on the Dr. Robert. Check them out. And while you're checking things out, check out our weekly rig rundowns. You can get them on YouTube, but go right to the PG site because you get them quicker there. Buy our magazine, read the last page, my column Last Call, and play on, my friends.